Tonight on Capitol Watch, a heated exchange at the Pam Bondi hearing is putting immigration enforcement and public safety in the spotlight. Lawmakers pressed the Attorney General on what happens when states pull back from federal cooperation, and the answers could have serious implications for communities across the country. If you value in-depth breakdowns that go beyond the soundbites, make sure you subscribe right now so you never miss an update.
Take a break to head to the floor.
I thank the Chairman, Attorney General Bondi. Thank you for being here, and I wanted to thank you for your work at DOJ in restoring the rule of law, encouraging transparency surrounding Jack Smith's partisan investigations into President Trump, declassifying information about the Russia collusion hoax, cracking down on sanctuary jurisdictions, and establishing the National Fraud Enforcement Division. Let me first go to securing the border and immigration enforcement. Our new governor has recently rescinded 287G cooperation between the state and ICE. Can you talk about, have you evaluated the public safety impact, how that would affect safety in Virginia to withdraw that support, and what that would do to criminal activity involving illegal immigrants in Virginia?
Yes, it would be detrimental. And as you know, Congressman, one of the top members of MS-13 in the entire country was living in Virginia, in a suburb, among all of us, living not even probably half an hour away from where we are now. And the cooperation previously with the governor, with the members of the state of Virginia, helped catch him and take him off our streets. An illegal MS-13, one of the heads for the entire country, was living in Virginia. And it's a shame that that's happening now. And thank you for talking about it, because we're going to keep America safe. And when people feel like they can flee to these cities and states and be safe, they can't. Because Donald Trump is going to protect Americans. We're going to protect the citizens there, whether or not the governors, the mayors are going to do it or not. But President Trump is. We're going to keep Americans safe from violent gang members like he's been doing this last year.
We appreciate that. We appreciate your work to make that happen in Virginia and keep Virginia safe. I want to move on to the Fraud Enforcement Division that you've established. My understanding is that this initiative is intended to centralize, coordinate enforcement of fraud laws related to government programs. You've talked about Minnesota, you've talked about California. Would this affect Virginia as well? Because we have fraud in Virginia as well.
Absolutely, and we look forward to working with you.
Would this affect things like long-term care accountability, senior living facilities engaged in Medicaid fraud, including systemic overbilling practices and the misappropriation of taxpayer-funded benefits?
That is exactly what it's set up to help.
Okay. I know that whether it was related to fraud specifically or another subject, that under the Biden administration, there was a sitting member of the Virginia General Assembly under investigation. Is that investigation still ongoing? Can you speak to that?
I can't discuss that.
Okay. I'm going to move on to the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding Americans. Last year, President Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law, which included the Hearing Protection Act, part of it that was sponsored by myself and Congressman Clyde. It reduced the national firearms tax, $200 tax on suppressors and short-barreled firearms, to zero. And while the tax has been eliminated, the NFA's registration and paperwork requirements remain in effect, and your DOJ has said that would, even though the tax was reduced to zero, that the registration requirement is still somehow necessary, even though with regard to Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, when that mandate was, when that tax penalty was reduced to zero, you decided that the mandate was no longer necessary. How are you justifying the existence of this registry?
Congressman, that's pending litigation right now.
It is, and I would hope you would reconsider that. I yield back.
The gentleman yield?
I yield to the chairman.
I think that Attorney General Bondi, Why did Jack Smith have to pay some secret source $20,000 of taxpayer money? Do you know the answer to that?
I can't discuss anything on that matter, but that's a good question, Chairman Jordan.
Well said. It's a good question because he subpoenaed just about every Republican in this town, got half the Congress's phone numbers if you were a Republican. But he has to pay some secret source a bunch of taxpayer money. We'd like to know, the committee would like to know how many other sources he paid. Was it more than $20,000? Why he had to do those things? We'd like to know when you can, if you could get that information to the committee. I think when you think about the guy who was trying to put the President of the United States in prison, ridiculous as that whole thing was, we'd kind of like to know the answer to that if you could. And with that, we're going to stand in recess. We will go as quickly as we can and vote. We have 2 quick votes on the floor, and we will be back. There is actually some lunch if you all need it. We have for our members, and since you're back here, you can have some. We normally have plenty.
Mr. Chairman.
We'll take a recess.
Before you gavel out, can I ask for unanimous consent to enter to a record the article entitled Inside Trump's DOJ, dated October 16, 2020?
Without objection, we stand in recess.
During the hearing, Attorney General Pam Bondi was thanked for what supporters describe as restoring the rule of law at the U.S. Department of Justice. The conversation quickly turned to immigration enforcement, specifically the decision by Virginia's new governor to rescind participation in the 287G program, a federal initiative that allows state and local law enforcement agencies to collaborate with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. To understand why this matters, let's break down what 287G actually does. The program authorizes trained local officers to perform certain immigration enforcement functions, such as identifying and processing individuals in custody who may be in the country unlawfully. Supporters argue that this creates a force multiplier effect, allowing federal authorities to work more efficiently. Critics argue it can blur the line between local policing and federal immigration enforcement, potentially eroding trust in immigrant communities. Bondi did not mince words. She said withdrawing from 287G would be detrimental to public safety. She pointed to a specific example, claiming that one of the top members of MS-13 in the country had been living in Virginia. That reference is significant. MS-13 has long been cited by federal officials as a symbol of the risks associated with transnational criminal organizations operating within U.S. borders. By invoking that example, Bondi framed the debate not as a policy disagreement, but as a direct public safety issue. This hearing also touched on broader themes. Lawmakers referenced what they described as transparency efforts surrounding investigations led by Jack Smith into Donald Trump, along with the declassification of information related to the Russia investigation. These references show how immigration enforcement is being discussed within a larger political narrative about federal authority, executive power, and institutional trust. Here is what viewers should take away. When a state withdraws from 287G, it does not mean federal immigration enforcement stops. ICE can still operate independently. However, it may reduce information sharing and coordination at the local level. The key question becomes whether that reduction increases risk or whether it strengthens community relationships and encourages cooperation with local police on non-immigration matters. Reasonable people can disagree, but the stakes are real. Subscribe to stay informed.